Discover the incredible twist: single mom fired after touching rescue, finds out who he really is. Sarah had just settled into her afternoon shift at the clinic when the chaos erupted. A muffled shout accompanied a rapid scuffle as a man collapsed at the front desk. Heart already racing from the pressures of the day, she burst into action. The man, disheveled, clothes tattered, looked weary and frightened, his eyes darting back and forth even in unconsciousness. For a split second, doubt flickered. Was he always this way, or had she become a victim of her own biases? But the thought evaporated as she knelt by him, her instincts overtaking her judgment. Lives depended on her own, her children's. Stay with me, she urged frantically, her pulse waning with each second. Behind her kind demeanor lay the intricate dance of survival. Handling a demanding job while being a single mother wasn't just taxing, it was suffocating. She'd chosen nursing to make a difference, yet here she stood, constantly burning herself out. Had her yearning for recognition become a curse? But the man before her, Jake, was unlike her patients. He wasn't just a case number, and she couldn't afford to hesitate. As they loaded him onto a gurney, she recognized the mix of dread and determination welling inside her. Each heartbeat pushed her towards compassion, yet the question lingered: what if he was trouble? The scrutiny of the world settled on her shoulders. Was she helping or hurting by becoming too involved? When she learned he was a homeless man, her heart ached. She knew firsthand how quickly one could fall. Unemployment for her meant hunger for her kids. They could suffer from her choices. Would this decision lead to redemption or ruin? Her mind raced as her hands methodically assessed Jake's condition, adrenaline masking insecurity. Shouting orders, she focused on his unstable vitals, blocking out the fear that thundered in her chest. The line separating professionalism and chaos began to blur. When she managed to stabilize him, the relief was fleeting. Her victory was short-lived, swallowed by the reality of the inevitable fallout that loomed beyond the walls of the clinic. Suddenly, everything felt out of reach. After Jake was transported to the hospital, the cool bite of consequences cut through her earlier high. Soon after her shift, her phone buzzed ominously. An unceremonious termination was just as harsh as the refusal that followed her appeals for help. The words liability echoed repeatedly, stirring the trepidation brewing within. Losing her job was like the ground being pulled from under her, her connections to the community transformed from ally to adversary. This couldn't be happening. She was only trying to help. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Now she stood at the precipice of uncertainty, just a single mother battling a crushing weight without a guiding hand. What if there was more to Jake than what met the eye? She couldn't shake the feeling that he was more than just a victim, he was a fragment of a larger puzzle she had yet to piece together. As shadows fell in her heart, Sarah felt urgency spiraling. Would reclaiming her dignity be intertwined with his? Everything hinted at a deeper story waiting to unfold. And as her fingers curled into determined fists, she sensed that answers were too close yet out of reach, and there was no way she could leave the truth buried in the past. The clock was ticking, and Sarah was prepared to uncover it all, but at what cost? Sarah's night was a restless ocean of thoughts, each crashing wave echoing the noise from the clinic that had haunted her since the chaotic day. The termination from her job gnawed relentlessly at her self-worth, amplifying the gentle whispers of doubt. As she shuffled through her dimly lit apartment, she felt the walls closing in a suffocating reminder of the financial strain looming ahead. Her children, ages 5 and 7, bubbly bundles of energy, remained blissfully unaware of their mother's inner turmoil. Yet, as she tucked them in, the guilt gnawed deeper. She wanted to shield them from her fears, but how? The reality was harsh. Bills loomed like shadows, casting doubt over her ability to provide. Her determination flickered, reminiscent of the fluorescent lights that struggled to stay lit during a storm. The relentless echo of liability played in her mind. Was her desire to help worth losing everything? She wrestled with the very notion of compassion, wondering if a firm barrier would have been safer for her family. In the depths of her self-reproach, however, a flicker of resolve ignited the understanding that vulnerability could be a source of strength. Before dawn broke, Sarah scrolled through online job listings, her eyes heavy but her resolve unwavering. Each application felt like a step away from the disappointment of her last workplace, a chance to rise anew. An idea struck: what if she could create a community service initiative to help others like Jake? Transforming her bitterness into action could yield unexpected rewards. Yet another voice whispered caution: was she truly ready for such a leap? As the sun filtered through the blinds, shedding light on her next steps, Sarah poured herself a cup of coffee, determination coursing through her veins. She began researching local resources, discovering nonprofits and community centers that helped the underserved. A pathway illuminated through her despair, revealing a potential mission larger than herself. Her heart raced not from fear but anticipation as she envisioned a world where her nursing skills could spill over into community service that could bridge her past and present. It felt less like a car crash and more like a concert, an explosive fusion of what she was and what she could become. But as she drafted initial plans, self-doubt seeped back. Who would listen to a freshly unemployed mother? Yet, the urgency sparked an unlikely fire within her. Each email sent and each phone call made became a step past the boundaries she had previously allowed herself. The concept of facing rejection morphed from paralyzing to liberating, as she discovered within herself an innate ability to rally others towards a cause. No more hiding, she whispered softly, fueled by the notion that her struggle might become her greatest strength. Days filled with networking and brainstorming blurred into a whirlwind of activity. With each interaction, Sarah's confidence grew. She realized her experiences were assets, intricacies that made her relatable and authentic. However, just as flickers of hope illuminated her path, a phone call from an unknown number shattered her momentum. Hesitant, Sarah picked up, her heart racing again. After a few seconds of silence, the voice on the other end identified himself. It was Jake. More than just the man she helped, he was key to something much larger. "Sarah, I need to talk to you. There's a lot you don't know," he said, each word dripping with urgency. The world around her faded as a weightless tension took hold. What could he possibly reveal that would entwine their fates further? Questions spun wildly, colliding in her mind as she braced for yet another twist in her already tumultuous journey. The journey of self-discovery had only just begun, and Sarah understood one thing all too well: her choices would echo beyond herself in ways impossible to foresee. Sarah stood still, the phone pressed to her ear as Jake's voice cut through the fog of her thoughts. Each syllable he uttered grasped her attention, unraveling the questions she barely knew she had. "There's more to my story, Sarah. More than what you saw that day." His words felt heavy, packed with a promise of revelation that sent a ripple of anxiety through her. She knew Jake as the man she attempted to save. His shoes were worn and his eyes hollowed from streets that had offered him only hardship. Instead of trepidation, curiosity demanded to be fed. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice steady, although her heart beat like a drum against her chest. "You were there when I needed help the most. But you need to understand there's a reason for everything." The conversation fell into silence, charged with unspoken implications. What had she walked into? The reckless desires she harbored for a new mission flashed through her mind, creating a collision with this sudden encapsulation of fate. She bit her lip, processing the gravity of his unfinished thoughts. "I don't have much time. Can we meet?" Jake finally pressed, urgency creeping into his tone. Without hesitating, Sarah agreed, a decision as impulsive as it was calculated. This was not just about curiosity, this was about her emerging sense of purpose. She hung up, trembling on the precipice of uncertainty. This could change everything. Sitting at her kitchen table later felt paradoxical. The space was simultaneously her refuge and prison. Work from her new initiative filled the table, and the contrast shocked her. Here, she was crafting a new path for herself, and it glimmered with the potential for growth. Could Jake's hidden layers deepen the mission she envisioned? Days trickled by, painted with anticipation. The idea of working towards a greater good brushed against her sense of reality, and for the first time, she questioned her capability to bridge passion and profession. Each hesitation throbbed painfully against the backdrop of her children's laughter, who remained oblivious to their mother's inner conflicts. What if Jake carried the weight of reasons that could undermine her dream? The thought alone set her heart ablaze with panic, and she dismissed it as quickly as it came. When the day finally arrived, she met Jake in a small cafe. The air was charged, crackling between potential and uncertainty. As he walked in, she noted the rigidity in his gait, the way he scanned the room like a soldier returning home. His face bore the marks of hardship, yet flickers of hope infused his demeanor. "Thank you for meeting me," he began, settling into the seat opposite her, a layer of vulnerability unfurling. "I need you to know this isn't just my story. It's the reason I fought through the dark. You made a difference in my life, but it ties back to more than just one moment." Sarah leaned forward, heart racing as she prepared to confront the unknown implications of his next words. This conversation could redefine her understanding of helping others, love, and the innate skills she held within. "People want to hear your voice. You can shift perspectives," Jake continued, his gaze steady. "But there's one thing you need to know about me that will change everything." His shadow loomed larger than she imagined. She felt it resonate within her own path. Was she ready to uncover the truth that could upend her newfound mission? The weight in the room threatened to crush, yet also lifted her to new heights. What could he be hiding? Suddenly, the journey forward did not just lie in her dreams. The door to revelation was ajar, and Sarah sensed it was up to her to step through. She felt momentum building, but at what cost? The moment was ripe with tension, teetering on the edge of profound discovery. "Tell me," she urged, her voice barely a whisper, adrenaline pulsing through her veins. What would this revelation mean for her future? How would it reshape the trajectory she had only just begun to explore? And then Jake spoke, each word pulling her deeper into a spiral of uncertainty, igniting a path she was unprepared for. Jake leaned in, his voice dropping to a hush that seemed to absorb the noise of the cafe around them. "Before I met you that day, I was someone else entirely. I was lost, Susan, trapped in a cycle of despair." His words were tinged with an urgency that mirrored Sarah's racing heart. "But that encounter changed everything for me." His candor both thrilled and frightened her. He took a deep breath, as if preparing to reveal a secret that could shatter their fragile moment. "I was involved in something I regret. A life I tried to escape, a criminal past." The impact of his admission struck hard, reverberating in the space between them. Every fiber of her being urged her to retreat, to distance herself from whatever chaos Jake was about to unpack, yet she felt an undeniable pull to understand. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tumultuous waves of uncertainty crashing over her. "What have you done?" "I was in a gang," he admitted flatly, the raw honesty in his eyes flickering like a candle in the dark. "I did terrible things, Sarah. Losing myself was my way of coping with the pain." Each confession escalated the stakes between them, the momentum shifting as he laid his past bare. "But it was you, that moment you reached out, it changed the course of my life. It sparked a waning flame within me." Her head swam with conflicting thoughts. Could this be a ploy? Yet somewhere deep down, the passion to help others often drowned in the reality that some stories were simply too damaged to rewrite. But Jake's intensity felt different, a call to empathy wrapped in desperation. "Why are you telling me this now?" she asked, her professional instincts flaring as she searched for hidden motives amidst silver linings. Because, he pressed, leaning forward as if trusting this strained connection as his lifeline, I need to make amends. I know the journey ahead isn't just about me, it's about people I can help. I didn't ever think I'd have someone like you in my corner, but I want to use what I went through to help others who are still trapped. As the weight of his words settled, uncertainty gnawed at her. Could Jake's experience tie into the mission she envisioned? The potential for his past to derail her aspirations was terrifying, but an undeniable spark of determination ignited within her. Was this yet another chance to influence change, perhaps not just in her life but in his? I understand your intention, but it's complicated, she replied, debating the balance of allowing his past to mingle with her aspirations. You bear a heavy burden, Jake. It could affect everything I've built. I know. But if you really want to leverage your power to help others like you mentioned, I could guide you, share my experiences, he suggested, his voice tinged with cautious hope. Sarah felt her mind racing through the implications. This could be a partnership that led to progress, but would she be able to handle the potential chaos that could ensue? She couldn't ignore the risk her own children's safety flashed across her mind. But the urge to grow, to break boundaries while seeking greater good, rooted her to the spot. Let me think about it, she finally said, needing the time to sift through the whirlwind of emotions and decisions crisscrossing her mind. Please, Jake implored, his sincerity flooding the space, give me a chance to prove that I'm more than my past. I want to help with your initiative, together. As she met his gaze, doubts flayed her heart, conflicting with the striking resolve ignited by his vulnerability. Sarah felt the tremor of potential stretching out before them, wrapping them in fragile threads of hope. Tension electrified the atmosphere, and with each fleeting moment, a daunting question loomed larger: what if engaging with Jake unraveled all she had begun to create? Set aside your fear, Sarah, Jake whispered, digging deeper with eyes shimmering with resolve. The real risk is in not trying. It could lead you to discover not just my past, but your true potential. The moment hung suspended, a fragile precipice between her certainty and fear. Sarah knew one thing for sure: she stood at a crossroad that could either carve her path into a new light or plunge into an abyss. Let us see where this takes us, she said, her voice firm yet uncertain, sealing an unintentional pact that had the potential to reshape both their destinies. As their conversation ebbed and flowed, the cafe buzz faded into the background, creating a cocoon of possibilities and hidden risks. Could she truly navigate this uncharted territory, filled with shadows of the past clashing against the aspirations of the future? With each word exchanged, the reality of her decision made its presence known. Sarah felt her growth weighed against the looming danger, igniting a tenacity she never knew resided within. This was only the beginning, but what would come next? The urgency of the unknown beckoned, shimmering like a mirage. As she prepared to leave, the moment crystallized, revelations awaited, but were they worth the personal price? The thrill and fear intertwined, leaving her longing for more clarity while standing on the cusp of transformation. And as she stepped out into the open air, a new question gnawed at her: what was she truly capable of, and would she find the strength to confront the challenges that lay ahead? As Sarah stepped onto the street, the cool air wrapped around her, a sharp contrast to the heated conversation she'd just endured. Every nerve in her body tingled with the adrenaline of uncertainty. Jake's words echoed in her mind, a mixture of hope and a profound challenge. What did she truly want from this unexpected alliance? Thoughts of her children crept into her awareness, tugging at her heart. They were her priority, her anchor in tumultuous waters. She had built a life of stability for them, a protective bubble against the unpredictable chaos of the world. But had she unintentionally constructed walls that kept her from exploring her true potential? Determination began to blossom amidst the doubt, and she reminded herself of her professional vision. If Jake could turn his life around, might his experience provide an authentic perspective that could benefit others, people like herself who felt lost in their own shadows? The prospect was thrilling, yet nerve-wracking. In her quiet moments at home that night, Sarah dissected her options. She scrolled through articles about successful initiatives that paired community outreach with personal narratives. Each success story pulled a thread in her, inspiring her to believe that change could flow from the smallest acts, one story at a time, one connection at a time. But the specter of risk loomed heavily in her mind. Could Jake really be reformed? She spent late hours questioning his intentions, yet she could feel something deeper flickering in her gut, an alignment of purpose. Maybe his journey could illuminate her path, turning past transgressions into powerful testimonies that inspired hope and action. In the glow of her laptop, she began to draft a proposal for her initiative. Sifting through her thoughts, she focused on the essence of her mission, to create a safe space for people grappling with their pasts. Jake's insights could provide the authenticity she craved, the touch of lived experience that transformed theoretical goals into heartfelt realities. As she typed, a wild mix of anticipation and anxiety knitted itself in her stomach. The thought of involving Jake sent her spiraling between excitement and trepidation. Could she balance her instinct to protect her children with her desire to embrace this newfound potential? At what cost? Just as doubts crept back in, she recalled Jake's intensity and the earnestness in his eyes. The willingness to share his vulnerability spoke volumes about the universal journey of redemption. Perhaps this was not just about helping others, perhaps it was about her own evolution. The next morning, armed with renewed purpose, Sarah met with Jake in the same cafe. She wanted to lay clear terms and boundaries, to establish a foundation that respected both their needs. The stakes felt high, and she could sense the weight of their conversation would shape not just their partnership but her entire trajectory. "Jake," she started, settling into the chair across from him, the cafe bustling with the morning grind around them. "I've thought a lot about your offer." His eyes brightened with cautious hope, but she continued, "We need to establish mutual goals. I can't risk everything I've built without a clear understanding." Jake nodded, acknowledging the gravity of her words. "I completely understand, Sarah. I want to be upfront about what you can expect from me. My experiences can guide others, but I also recognize that trust is built over time." "I'm glad to hear you say that," Sarah replied, tapping her fingers lightly against her mug, her pulse quickening. "I want this to work, but my kids come first. Your past is a complexity I have to navigate carefully." "Absolutely, and I respect that," he said, earnestness knitting his brows together. "I won't let my past drown out our initiative. Together, we can leverage our stories for good, but it has to come from a place of clarity." As their conversation unfolded, Sarah felt the tension mold into a sense of camaraderie. Here was the chance she had been yearning for, a way to channel her fears into something palpable, to push the boundaries of her comfort zone while still protecting her core. But just as they hit a flow, her phone buzzed with a notification. A message from an old colleague discussing potential funding opportunities faltered her focus. Could this be the bridge to solidify her plan? The timid anticipation held tightly in her chest reached a boiling point. "Excuse me, I need to take this," she said, her fingers already moving to respond, invigorated by the pathway opening before her. As she stepped outside to take the call, her thoughts spiraled in a new direction. Could she manage the impending demands from both Jake's unpredictable journey and the professional pressures surfacing? With her family at stake, a tension brewed, deepening her resolve. And as the call ended, the gravity of her choices pulsed through her like an electric current, awakening fears she hadn't anticipated, challenging her to reassess everything she thought she knew about herself and those she surrounded herself with. What if this partnership led her down a path of unexpected complexity, risking not just her dreams but the safety of those she loved? Each decision loomed larger than the last, intertwining her personal and professional destinies in ways she had never imagined. The moment crystallized, leaving her standing on the edge, heart pounding with uncertainty. The time had come to confront not just Jake's past but her willingness to embrace change no matter the outcome. As she returned to the cafe, Sarah felt a tremor of anticipation. Each step forward held the weight of destiny. What complexities would unfold as she intertwined her life with Jake S.? What truths would she have to confront along the way? The tremors of uncertainty still gripping her, Sarah re-entered the cafe, the warmth enveloping her like a fleeting hug. She settled back into her chair, where Jake awaited her return, eyes analyzing the fluctuations of her demeanor. She took a deep breath, steadying herself against the tide of what felt like overwhelming possibilities. "Sorry about that," she said, trying for a light tone, but the waver in her voice betrayed her. "No problem at all," Jake replied, leaning in slightly, giving her the impression he was genuinely invested in her well-being. "I totally get it. If this is going to work, we both have to prioritize our commitments." Sarah nodded, grateful for his understanding but still feeling the raw edges of doubt. This partnership felt like walking a tightrope, balancing her desire for professional growth with her instinct to shelter her family from any fallout. "Let us define what we each need," she began, seeking clarity amidst the fog of her emotions. "I need a clear vision from you, your role, your expectations, and what you hope to achieve through this collaboration." Jake's face shifted into a serious expression. "I can appreciate that. My story isn't pretty, but it's real. I want to help others avoid the pitfalls I fell into. I have experience with these topics: addiction, personal failure, redemption, and I believe I can connect with people who need to hear it." Sarah considered this. His life might mirror the complexities she wished to expose, but did that make him a reliable partner? What if his honesty was a double-edged sword that cut too deeply into her world? "What you bring to the table is valuable," she said cautiously, "but personal stories can stir up trauma. We need safeguards in place, boundaries, guidelines. We don't want either of us to get too exposed." "Agreed. Perhaps a systematic approach to how we'll share our experiences would help," he suggested, warmth softening his tone. This cooperative spirit stirred something within her, an inkling of hope that what lay ahead could be fruitful. She saw glimpses of potential collaboration glimmering in their exchange. Yet still, doubts loomed, whispering warnings that mirrored her own vulnerabilities. "Let us talk funding. My colleague mentioned some grants, but without a concrete proposal, it means nothing," she added, shifting the conversation to the transactional aspects. Jake straightened, the momentary levity vanishing as he shifted into a practical mode. "Good point. We need a framework to present. If we're going to draw on our stories, we should also map out specific outcomes we want for those we intend to reach." They began to craft a structure, a foundation built upon their distinct narratives interwoven with achievable goals. Sarah's hands danced over her notepad, fiercely jotting down ideas, each word transforming uncertainty into tangible ambition. Suddenly, her phone vibrated again. She looked at the screen and was surprised to see a notification from a local media outlet seeking stories for an upcoming segment. The words scrolled through her mind: individual resilience, personal transformations. Could this be her chance to showcase their work? To amplify their initiative even before its launch? "I think we need to consider publicity early on," she dared to propose, her pulse quickening. "Getting the right attention could help us leverage support." Jake met her eyes, curiosity mixed with caution. "That's a bold move," he replied. "But playing our cards too close to our chests felt safer when I first got here. How do you feel about being so exposed, like putting ourselves out there before we've even built a solid brand?" "A risk," she admitted, "but one that could yield rewards. If we're going to make an impact, people need to hear our stories, even if they come with the sharp edges of honesty." For the first time, Sarah recognized the power of vulnerability as a tool, not just a burden. She felt her resolve sharpen, the haziness of her previous fears crystallizing into drive. As their ideas flowed, she could feel the energy in the cafe shifting, reflecting her mounting excitement. They became a team, brainstorming ways to intertwine their experiences into a mission that could inspire those feeling lost in their battles. Their synergy blossomed, with a newfound dynamic taking shape before her. Yet, just as the conversation reached a crescendo of creativity, a shadow passed over her thoughts, a momentary flicker of Jake's past dancing through her mind. He wasn't just a storyteller, he was a living reminder of what could go wrong. Could she genuinely navigate this path, intertwining her life with his without compromising everything she held dear? Her pulse quickened, uncertainty cascading over her again, as a thought drifted unbidden into her consciousness: what would happen if Jake's past resurfaced, dragging her into a maelstrom she couldn't escape? As they delved deeper into their plans, Sarah glanced at her watch. Time was slipping away faster than she anticipated. How long could she keep the unsettling balance between ambition and caution before a misstep would plunge her into chaos? With each tick of the clock, she sensed the growing intensity of their partnership reflected in her rapidly shifting internal landscape. Now was the moment to decide how far was she willing to go to secure a future she could finally believe in. What bleak implications lurked beneath the surface of their collaboration? And could she prepare to face the darker truths that accompanied forging a path intertwined with someone like Jake? As the days turned into weeks, Sarah immersed herself in the collaborative framework she and Jake had initiated. The initial spark had ignited a commitment within her once anchored in uncertainty. She was now propelled by the burgeoning possibility of influence. A new sense of urgency replaced the trepidation she'd felt that day in the cafe. Every idea they exchanged seemed like a step onto solid ground, yet the undercurrent of apprehension never fully waned. In her quiet moments, Sarah dissected her motives. Was she genuinely pursuing this project for the sake of others, or was she seeking validation, a way to redefine her identity beyond the label of single mom? The question simmered in her mind, an ever-widening chasm that threatened to pull her down. One afternoon, buoyed by the infectious energy pulsating from her collaboration with Jake, she struck out for a local community center. The building stood testament to years of stories, a vivid backdrop for the transformation she envisaged. With a notebook clutched to her chest, she mentally rehearsed her pitch, plucking up courage to integrate their experiences within the community fabric. However, as she stepped into the center's dimly lit hallway, the flickering fluorescent lights mirrored her internal chaos. Thoughts of rejection gnawed at her resolve. What if people were not ready to embrace their honesty? What if the stories they wished to share felt like too much? She paused near the vibrant bulletin board that heralded various workshops and events. There, tucked between flyers, was a gaudy poster advertising an upcoming community talent showcase. It made her pause. Talent. Did she possess any? Beyond her resilience in managing day-to-day chaos, was there something in her that could genuinely connect with others? The realization hit her: a spark of creativity had lain dormant. It was tempting now to believe Jake's narrative intertwined with hers could be the key to unleash her potential. But would venturing into the public sphere as a contributor rather than a passive observer be enough? Could she perform on a stage of authenticity and not choke on the intensity of her own truth? As she exited the center, Sarah felt the pull of decision-making swirl inside her. The memory of Jake's stories surfaced like a tide, intense, raw, each layered with pain yet tinged with revelation. Vulnerability was potent, she realized, a currency she had yet to fully exploit. Perhaps their combined narratives could channel that potency beyond mere self-expression. It could inspire, heal, and resonate with those struggling in silence. Back in her living room, surrounded by papers and tangled thoughts, Sarah grabbed her phone and opened the social media app. They had created a dedicated page to promote their project, Voices of Resilience. Fingers shaking slightly, she composed her first post, a personal reflection interwoven with her aspirations and the importance of community engagement. She knew that transparency could cultivate trust, revealing her own vulnerabilities while presenting Jake as a catalyst for change could foster connection. Before she could second-guess herself, she hit post. The immediate rush of anxiety morphed into exhilaration. Would people respond? Was she ready to embrace the reality of visibility? The notifications danced on her screen, a cascade of replies and likes flowing in almost instantly. People were not only engaging with her message, they were sharing their own stories in the comments. For the first time, Sarah could discern tangible impact unfolding before her eyes: a shared resonance, an emerging fabric of community woven through individual experiences. But even as she savored this moment, a familiar shadow crept back into her thoughts. Jake's past, were they truly equipped to manage the complexities of sharing his narrative publicly? Did it risk undermining the authenticity and hope she desperately sought to build? Just as she was about to retreat into her worries, a direct message popped up on her screen. It was from a local newspaper journalist, expressing interest in their project and asking for an interview. Her heart raced. Was this the opportunity she dared to reach for, or would this exposure wake the ghosts embedded in Jake's past, flooding her newly built foundation with chaos? The pressure surged, pushing her to confront the strength she had begun to cultivate. It was now or never to face the deeper truths of her own commitment, not just to the project, but to herself. How could she wield her own journey to forge a path, knowing the storm that lurked nearby? As she sat before her laptop, staring at the blinking cursor of her email draft, one question loomed larger than all others. Was she ready to take on the weight of the truth, knowing the stakes had never been higher? The weight of the blinking cursor bore down on Sarah, suffocating her with every passing second. The offer from the journalist felt like a freight train charging towards her, and she could either be caught in its path or leap to safety. Fear coursed through her veins, entwined with a surge of determination. What if this was the moment that defined her, the crossroads where she could either embrace her story or remain shackled by doubt? She took a deep breath, feeling each inhale draft through her lungs, bringing her closer to a revelation. The raw energy of vulnerability hummed in her thoughts. Jake's past echoed in her mind, a shared history that, though fraught with pain, could provide insight and healing if approached with intention. It wasn't merely about their narratives, but how those experiences could potentially ripple through the lives of those who felt unheard. Decisively, she began to type. "Thank you for reaching out. I would love to discuss the project further." Each word felt increasingly liberating as she conveyed not only their vision but the weight of each individual story they intended to share. Seeing the count of keystrokes grow made her feel like she was unshackling herself from a past defined solely by motherhood and insecurity. She was reclaiming her narratives. As she pressed send, a wave of adrenaline coursed through her. The response would surely follow. Yet a gnawing apprehension trailed in its wake. Would Jake be comfortable with this level of exposure? The question hung heavy in her mind, a dark cloud looming as she recalled his hesitations during their discussions. That evening, she called Jake. Voice trembling, she broached the topic of the interview. "I think we should do it. It could be an opportunity to reach even more people." The silence on the other end was palpable, punctuated only by the sound of Jake's breathing. "Sarah, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but my past isn't something I share lightly. It's complicated." His resistance stirred a whirlwind of emotions. Was she pushing too hard, jeopardizing their initiative? But with each passing moment crystallized her resolve. After all, wasn't this the essence of their project? Embracing the complexity of their lives and finding strength in moments of authenticity? "I understand, but isn't it time we let people see our truth?" Her voice was steady now, her conviction solidified. "We're stronger together. Maybe revealing that truth can help someone else feel less alone." Jake hesitated before responding. "I'm scared, Sarah. What if talking about it creates more pain for me? Or worse, what if it's not received well?" Panic coursed through her. Reassurance felt elusive, yet she pulled on the threads of her own transformation. "We can navigate this together. It's about sharing our pain, but also our growth. If we don't take this step, how will we ever show that healing is possible? We have to trust each other." After a moment that stretched into eternity, Jake finally spoke, his voice quieter, reflective. "I see your point. I'll think about it." The conversation ended, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts. Empowerment surged within as she faced the reality of their initiative, realizing that, ultimately, it was more than sharing stories. It was about crafting a narrative that acknowledged struggles while shining a light on resilience. However, as she moved through the following days, her growing excitement was shadowed by uncertainty. She became fixated on the potential interview. How could she articulate their journey when even she was grappling with her motives? Then, the next message arrived, a notification from the journalist, prompting a meeting at a local cafe. Anxiety gripped her again as she braced for the forthcoming scrutiny. Sitting at her kitchen table, Sarah felt an electric shift within. Was she ready to confront the implications of being seen, of laying bare her journey alongside Jake S.? The stakes felt impossibly high as apprehension coursed back through her. The moment loomed, and her hesitations festered. Just as waves of self-doubt began to drown her, another message popped up, a heartfelt reply from one of their followers, detailing how much their project had meant to her personally. The emotional pull rejuvenated Sarah's drive, reminding her of the very purpose behind their endeavor. Now faced with a challenging decision, Sarah grasped the enormity of her next steps. While she envisioned the impact of their shared truths, the idea of vulnerability transformed into a formidable challenge. The storm was brewing, and she had to decide if she would embrace the winds of change or retreat into the shadows. With her heart pounding, she contemplated half-formed thoughts swirling in her mind and made a silent vow: if she was going to do this, she would do it on her terms. But was she fully prepared to expose her emotional scars for the world to see? As she clutched her phone, readying herself for the meeting, one thought intertwined with another: what would happen when the world was introduced to both Sarah and Jake in their rawest form? The crossroads were here, and a reckoning beckoned just beyond reach. The cafe buzzed with the mundane clatter of cups and murmur of conversations, but for Sarah, the world had narrowed into a singular focus. She sat at a small table near the window, nervously glancing at her reflection in the glass. The prospect of meeting the journalist loomed over her like a towering wave ready to crash. This was not just about an article, it was about unveiling her vulnerabilities and risks that felt terrifyingly tangible. The minutes ticked by, each second amplifying her self-doubt. What if she presented herself wrong? The very idea of exposing her struggles felt like peeling back the skin, leaving raw flesh for all to see. Yet, she couldn't shake the conviction that this dialogue was vital not just for her and Jake, but for those who might find solace in their shared experiences. As the cafe door swung open, a gust of wind rushed in, and with it, the journalist stepped inside. Sarah's heart raced as she collected herself, rising cautiously to greet Marissa. The woman exuded confidence, her notepad clutched in hand like a sword ready for battle. "Sarah? It's great to finally meet you." "Hi, yes. Thank you for coming," Sarah replied, her voice slightly quaking despite her efforts to sound professional. Marissa gestured for her to sit, and Sarah slid into the seat, her mind a whirlpool of thoughts. They exchanged pleasantries, but as Marissa began to ask pointed questions, Sarah could feel her defenses rise. Each query forced her to confront her own uncertainties. "What motivates you to share your story?" Marissa probed, eyes keen with interest. "I think it's about connection," Sarah found herself responding, slowly uncurling the layers of her anxieties. "I want to show that it's okay to struggle. To be real. Jake and I have been through a lot, and if we can help just one person feel less alone, it will be worth it." There was a weight behind her words, a sincerity that surprised even her. Marissa leaned in slightly, the notepad poised, ready to capture the essence of this moment. "Can you delve into how you've grown through your experiences? The darker parts of your journey?" The question echoed inside her, unsettling yet inviting. Sarah's thoughts darted back to the countless nights spent wrestling with her insecurities, the struggles she often minimized in her mind. It was easy to gloss over them when she envisioned the end product, a polished story of triumph. But wasn't the journey worth acknowledging, too? She had to confront her discomfort now, rather than later. "I've learned to stand up for myself," she admitted, every word cutting deeper than the last. "I used to hide, living in the shadows of shame and doubt. But the more I embrace my truth, the more empowered I feel. It's not easy though." Her voice trembled, revealing the raw honesty beneath her bravado. "I sense a lot of fear in your response, Sarah. Is it the potential backlash that worries you? Marissa's gaze softened, a professional empathy that unnerved Sarah. Yes, no, she stumbled briefly, collecting her thoughts. It's a fear of not being understood. Of being judged. I've been taking steps towards vulnerability, but exposing those emotions is like standing naked in front of a crowd. What if they turn away? Marissa took a moment, scribbling notes. But isn't that what makes your story compelling? The willingness to be open, raw, and real? It's what draws people in, she urged, narrowing the distance between Sarah's fears and her opportunities. With that, an epiphany ignited within Sarah. Maybe it wasn't about the judgment but rather embracing the connection forged through vulnerability. The journey she walked with Jake could serve as a catalyst for others to explore their depths. This wasn't just her story, it was a shared human experience. As their conversation flowed into deeper territories, Sarah felt the floodgates open. Words began to spill forth, her past mistakes, her aspirations, her partnership with Jake, the bliss and chaos woven through their lives. With every utterance, her confidence grew, muting the doubts that had once consumed her. By the time they finished, a strange calmness enveloped Sarah. She realized that stepping into her truth didn't mean martyrdom, but instead heralded an awakening. She had taken significant strides in her personal journey, but what awaited her once this story went public? As Marissa packed her things, Sarah felt the weight of the moment rekindle the fire within. A new realm of possibilities lay before her, yet the shadows of uncertainty still loomed large. She had opened the door, but would she be prepared for what awaited on the other side? Let's keep in touch, okay? I really want to see how this evolves, Marissa said, a hopeful note hanging in the air. Sarah nodded, but beneath that smile was an echoing question: would she and Jake have the courage to confront the truths they had unveiled? The world felt both daunting and exhilarating, and with that thought, she understood the storm was far from over. Pushing through the cafe door, leave-taking stirred a surge of anticipation within her. The path now stretched onward, more labyrinthine than she could fathom. What obstacles would arise as they stepped further into the light? Weeks had passed since that momentous cafe meeting with Marissa. The article had gone live, and Sarah now found herself at the center of a whirlwind, one that was both thrilling and terrifying. Notifications flooded her phone, messages of support, curiosity, and disbelief merged into an ever-growing chorus of voices. What was once a single initiative blossomed into public consciousness, a community rallying around the stories of resilience. But with the excitement came the inevitable backlash. Some criticized the exposure, evoking from her the uncomfortable question of whether she had put her family's safety at risk. Others doubted Jake's sincerity, warning her to tread carefully. Every message ignited a new wave of anxiety, battling for supremacy with the reassurance of those who celebrated her courage. Determined to cement the transformative journey of them both, Sarah scheduled a meeting with Jake. They needed to interrogate the swirling currents that came with their newfound visibility. As she approached the cafe where they first forged their partnership, anticipation thrummed through her veins. Jake's face lit up when he saw her years of hardship had etched lines into his features, but today, those lines seemed softened by purpose. "Great to see you," he said, his tone a blend of authenticity and excitement. "Did you see the responses to the piece?" "I did," Sarah replied, settling into her chair. "It's overwhelming. But with that response comes significant scrutiny. We need to be ready." "Ready for what?" he asked, tilting his head, eyebrows knitting together. "The implications of our stories being out there. Your past is part of the narrative, but it could also lead to misunderstanding. To judgment." Her voice barely masked the tremor of urgency. Jake nodded, the weight of her words settling in. "True, but this is a chance to redefine how people perceive that past. We can't lose sight of the chance to connect." Their conversation flowed, ideas sparking between them, igniting an unquenchable flame of motivation. They began to brainstorm ways to engage with the public in an organized manner, crafting outreach programs that emphasized empathy, first-person narratives of struggle, and ultimately, redemption. "Let us hold community workshops," Sarah proposed, envisioning a space for dialogue, each contribution validating those struggling to find their voice. "Good idea," Jake replied, nodding enthusiastically. "We could even host speakers with colorful backgrounds to share their journeys." What seemed like a distant dream the day they met now felt attainable. Their aspirations transitioned into actionable plans. Day by day, they chipped away at the inherent apprehension of vulnerability, viewing it instead as a source of strength rather than a liability. But just as optimism began to unfurl its wings within Sarah, a moment of hesitation disrupted the flow of their newfound rhythm. Jake's past whispers of uncertainty, speculations festering, had the potential to unearth the pieces they had both been trying to leave behind. Would his openness unravel what they had built at the community workshops? Could the shadows of regret cast a pall over their intentions? "Jake," she broached cautiously, her heart racing at the confrontation. "What if the workshops expose your past in a way that turns people against us? Are you truly ready to tell your truth?" His expression shifted momentarily, a flicker of vulnerability flashing across his features. "I know the risks, and I'm willing to confront them, but it has to be within a context that emphasizes growth, not just my history," he replied, his voice firm yet compassionate. "I want people to see what I've overcome, how real change is possible." "Then let us create a narrative around it," Sarah offered, her anxiety morphing into bold conviction. "Let us use this opportunity to shape how people perceive redemption, to challenge stereotypes. It's time to craft a dialogue." With renewed determination, Sarah and Jake designed their workshop's framework, intertwining their experiences to form an inclusive exploration of transformation. Each session became a celebration of resilience, highlighting the unfiltered narrative of redemption while ensuring harsh truths served as stepping stones toward growth rather than anchors of despair. Finally, the day of their first workshop arrived. Sarah stood before the assembled crowd, a diverse mix of people yearning for connection, curious about the story behind Voices of Resilience. The anxiety that unfurled within her transformed into steely resolve. She was no longer just a single mother chronically labeled. She was a catalyst for change, an advocate for vulnerability, standing resolutely on that precipice. As Sarah introduced herself, her voice rang clear and strong. "This isn't just my story or Jake's. This is a community narrative filled with struggles that echo through your lives, your uncertainties, and your triumphs. We're here to share openly and collectively, facing vulnerability with courage." With each ensuing story shared, she felt threads of connection weaving through the room. Jake's voice emerged as a poignant presence, illustrating not just hardship but genuine lessons learned. Time passed, and by the end of the session, the room was alive with raw emotion. Strangers had connected, tears were shed, laughter erupted. Each moment reaffirmed why Sarah stepped into this role, a determined desire to help others harness their narratives, no matter how complex. As they packed up, Sarah felt Jake's steady presence at her side. "You did amazing," he said, pride smugly gracing his face. "I think we really made an impact tonight." She smiled back, a rush of elation seeping into her heart. "It was a team effort. I couldn't have done it without you." In that moment, surrounded by a whirlwind of newfound relationships, Sarah realized the deeper truth of her journey. This project had become more than an initiative, it was a concrete testament to her growth, a transformation from survival mode to genuinely thriving, rooted in connection. Sarah and Jake resolved to continue the workshops, deepening their impact in the community. Together, they forged toward the path of purpose, pride swelling within Sarah as she experienced what it felt like to embrace her truth wholly. A voice deep inside urged her to continue, laying bare her vulnerability as a source of strength, the echo reverberating against the fears that once held her captive. She had navigated through the labyrinth of doubt and emerged not only whole but empowered, with a commitment to bring light to others as they began to tread their own paths towards resilience. As she and Jake exited the venue, Sarah felt the rush of possibility, life brimming with hope, reframing not only her identity but that of countless others. She had uncovered something deep within, courage born from adversity, reminding her that the most profound transformations often blossom from the very soil of struggle itself. They walked into the waning sunlight, ready for the next steps in their journey, a journey pulsing with urgency and light, where hope and the human spirit triumphed. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it's your moment to show support. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending, your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. The power of personal transformation deserves to be celebrated.